Good afternoon, my beautiful circle. Today is another Saturday. I am in Tempe, Arizona. As you can see, instead of being outside, I am actually inside. It is a rather cold, blustery, overcast day, and I figured it would be much better for me to just do my IG Live today in my office that overlooks Tempe. And I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to allow a number of you to sign on. I'm going to start off with the numerology tip for today. Today is a 3-day. And to give you all a quick primer on how you calculate the numerology for the day is you just take the date and you add up everything and then you reduce it down. So for instance, today is March 13th, 2021. So you have March, that's 3. The 13th, that's 4. So 3 and 4 are 7. And then you add the 2. 7 and 2 are 9. And then you add another 2. That's 11. And then you add 3. And no, then you add 1. Right? 11 and 1. Yes, that will be 12. So then you reduce it down to 1 plus 2. And that's 3. So today's number is 3. And 3 is a number of creativity. It is a number of synthesis, of integration. It comes after 2. If you remember the last time, I think we talked about 2 and how it's duality and how it is growth. It is a fork in a road. It is polarity, opposition. But the step above that is 3, where you are synthesizing and integrating and going through, I guess, academically, I remember as a Hegelian dialectic, when you take 2 different views and then you synthesize them, you integrate them, and there's a going back and forth until you create something new with 3. So 3 is, it represents creativity. It represents creating something new and synthesizing and integrating what it is that you know. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in my talk today. Today, I am going to chat about navigating speed bumps. And before I do that, I do want to let you all know that I have begun to do readings. And what I do is I call it a quantum field snapshot. So when I'm talking to one of my clients or I'm coaching someone, oftentimes I'll ask them, okay, so tell me a little bit about what's happening, something like really important to you right now that's happening. And I let them tell me, in basically a paragraph what's going on. And from there, I can basically give them some insight as to what is happening in their life, what kind of timelines I see, what the potentialities are, kind of give them a couple of different ways to look at what's happening and what might unfold as a result of some of the decisions they have to make. So I do that. Usually takes maybe 15 to 30 minutes, but that's something I do. If you want that, you can DM me. You can also email me. You may also go to dream_coach and set up something on my calendar so we can talk about things like that. There are other things that I do that are a lot more in depth, but if you are looking for maybe just 15 to 30 minutes of coaching or just a reading, I can do those things too. It doesn't have to be a full-blown coaching, although I enjoy that. I also do readings that are a lot more in depth for people who are looking for a lot more guidance or a lot more insight, where I would do a little bit more channeling. So that is also possible. So now that I've shared that, we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm looking to cover today. We're going to go over navigating speed bumps. Like, how do you navigate those speed bumps that happen in your life when you have challenging situations that come up in succession, one after the other, right? We'll talk about that. The next thing we'll talk about is the importance of paying attention to what is happening in your life when you're at your best, when you're feeling really, really good and blissed out and high frequency. Pay attention to who's there, what's going on, what are you doing. Take a snapshot so that you kind of have a catalog of what does it look like when you're in these different contexts, so that you can refer back to those, and you might want to use those to help yourself to get back to that particular place, kind of like breadcrumbs that you leave for yourself to get back existentially where you prefer to be. And on the other hand, pay attention, take a snapshot when you're at your worst. When you're at your worst, and you may not have the presence of mind to do this, but eventually you will. Who's there? Who always shows up when things aren't going well? Or what are you doing, or where are you? And what is the context when you're not at your best? Or what's going on? What is the common thread that you can find in those situations in life when you're not at your best, where you're in a low frequency situation? So we'll talk a little bit about that and what you can do. Then I want to talk about having the presence of mind of going back to those trauma sites and mine for the gold, okay? Going back to those places where the bad things happen and do some mining. Dig for the gold, dig for the diamonds. And we'll talk about when you do things like that and why it's important and how it can really, really open up your life in a way that you didn't think possible. And last but not least, we're going to talk about what kind of tree are you? Like, everybody's a tree. Really, to be honest with you, everybody's a tree. But the question is, what kind of tree are you? What kind of fruit are you bearing? Like, what are you known for in the world? What are you known for in your circle? Like, what kind of tree are you? Okay, we're going to chat about those things. Hopefully, I'm not going to be on here for an hour, but I really want to go into some depth with each of these. All right. So the first thing is navigating speed bumps. I will be the first to admit that this past week and a half to 2 weeks for me have been really challenging, in that we all are aware that we are going through a wholesale existential change in scenery, in age, and I mean the age that we're living in, moving from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, and what that means, coming out of a deep 2,000-year slumber of sorts, where we're all in this subconscious going along with what is happening, to where we are each now waking up, and there is a sense that there's a critical mass and pockets all over that are kind of like opening their eyes for the first time, waking up and realizing that there's so much more to life than what is right in front of our 10 fingers and 10 toes. There's so much more behind the scenes, behind what you see. There's a lot more that is governing and what is guiding and what is causing our lives to unfold, our collective lives to unfold in the way that it has. And we are waking up to exactly what those forces are and to what degree we have the power to influence those. That is what we're waking up to, all of us, to some degree and on different levels. But that is what's happening. And so when you have that as a backdrop, you are going to experience some speed bumps. You're going to experience things that normally, if it's just one thing, let's just say that you had a disappointment where you went and applied for a job and you really, really worked hard on that resume, your cover letter, you studied the questions, you were ready for a challenging and rigorous behavioral interview, and you feel like you really did a great job, and then you find out a week later that all that was for naught. And of course it's not. It's going to lead to something else. Things always do. When you put the work in, you always reap what you sow. But, momentarily and temporarily, that is a feeling, that is a letdown when you put so much into something and then you don't get back what you put out. And so that is a speed bump. But guess what? When you have another thing that happens like 2 days later, that doesn't really allow you to have time to recuperate from this past speed bump. Okay, and then 2 days later, something else comes up, whether it be with someone you love, or one of your kids, a really good friend. Maybe they've disappointed you, or maybe you disappointed them, or something that you were planning did not go as planned. And then you have another speed bump. And so in life, every once in a while, okay, the universe tests what you know. All of the reading that you're doing right now, because you're so awakened and you're so enlightened and you're so awake, right? All of that stuff, you need to be tested on it, right? So we know that knowledge, people say knowledge is power, but real power is not knowledge. It's the application of that knowledge that's power. So the universe is going to, from time to time, test your knowledge by forcing you to apply what you've learned. And so the degree to which you can apply what you learned successfully is the degree to which you're going to be able to rise up and move and ascend to that next level, or that next positive, auspicious timeline that's laid out for you. Okay, so those speed bumps, when they happen in succession and you don't have the opportunity and the required time to bounce back from each of those, that requires a new level of clarity, a new level of awareness about exactly what's happening to you. And it requires a presence of mind for you to go into your reservoir of tools and all of these things that you've been learning and apply those. And so that is what has happened to me recently. And I have to admit that I had a couple of speed bumps, and I would say for a whole 24 hours, I was not able to rise above it. I was not able to rise back to my level of equilibrium, that level of equanimity, and that level of self-mastery that I'm so used to, so that when things come my way, I usually can handle it no matter what it is. What I found myself doing is that I would be a little irritable, I would be snappy, or I would say something negative. And all the while I'm watching myself do it. I'm like, oh, this is not the me I like, but this is me right now, right? And so what I recommend in those situations, because it's gonna happen, and I want you to cut yourself some slack, because no matter how much you've learned, and no matter how much you've been studying, and how much you are realizing that you are a much more enlightened person than you were last year or year before last, you are going to encounter a host, a sequence, a succession of challenges that will require you to dig really, really deep into your reserve to be able to overcome that mood or overcome that low vibration. And it's okay. It's nice to be tested and to have something to pat yourself on the back about, to be able to prove to yourself, oh, okay, I do understand this thing. I do understand how to use what I've learned and to apply what I've been watching on these podcasts and listening to, watching on YouTube and listening to on podcasts and reading in these books and listening to on Audible. I'm starting to apply some of this. And you may not be able to apply everything you've learned, but a certain percentage of that you will retain and you will be able to apply. So one of the things that I talked about several weeks ago is the ability to zoom out. So if you remember what zooming out means, type it in. Or you can just go and give me a thumbs up to let me know you remember what zooming out is. But zooming out is just taking a moment to toggle into the macro, out of the micro. Look at the bigger picture. Just really zoom out and see the bigger picture of where this situation that you're dealing with right now, how small it is compared to the big picture and compared to what the momentum of your life is, and the positive places you're going and the positive things that you're experiencing, how small this one speed bump actually happens to be. And that is going to help you. The next thing that will help you is for you to realize that every speed bump, every challenge is an opportunity for you to see that challenge, that difficulty, see it as a gift. See it as the universe's way of allowing you to flip that vibration into something positive, to look at that difficulty and experience it at its higher frequency, because everything is a polarity. There's always the other side to it. So if you're going through something really challenging and very difficult, you can flip the script and you can see the higher meaning of it and catapult yourself into the awareness of the higher meaning of what you're going through, so that nothing really that you encounter is so bad. You get to the point where you actually embrace the challenges because you realize there's something in it that is kind of a rite of passage into a new perspective, a higher level perspective, a macro view, an aerial view of the entire life that you are living and the trajectory that you're on. And it is actually those difficult dark nights of the soul and those challenges that catapult us into our destiny. And it takes a while to be able to see difficulties in that way, but that is what they are. And just like anything else that you do over and over and over again, repetition is the mother of learning. So if you are able to go through that time and time again, eventually you're going to get much better at seeing those challenges as they're coming your way. You can see them a mile away and you can see, there's something that's coming here, but I know there's something really amazing in this situation that I'm going to learn, that I'm going to see the positive aspect of, and it's going to allow me to grow even more. Okay? So that is something that that occurred to me that I think is that is really, really, really important. And paying attention to who you're around, to where you are, to what you're actually engaged in when you're in that heightened state of awareness and high frequency and things are really going well for you. It's like one thing after the other is going well. Your engagement, your interactions with people, you are in the flow and you know you're in the flow. You're in the flow because your gifts, your natural, your native gifts and talents are just flowing. You're just in your element. When that happens, okay, so now we're moving into the topic that has to do with taking a snapshot of what's happening when you're in the flow, when you're at your height, when you're at that high frequency. It's important for you to be aware, be present, where you're like, you know what? I see that I'm in the flow. I see that things are going well for me. This feels like the real me. This feels like my higher self. This feels like where I'm supposed to be. These are the people that I'm supposed to be surrounded by. What I'm doing right now, what I'm engaged in, this is what I was made and created to do. When you find yourselves in a flow state like that, take a snapshot, take a picture of it, and remember it. Because when you are going through those speed bumps, it's nice for you to have something to fall back on, to look at, to remind yourself, okay, I'm going through this speed bump right now, but this is the ideal me. This situation that I just had the other day where I was in the flow, I was in a flow state and everything was going extremely well, effortlessly. Take a snapshot of that so that you use that as a breadcrumb to find your way back to your bliss, to find your way back to your higher self, to find your way back to the place that is in your vision, that timeline that is reflective of who you were created to be. So it's important to take those snapshots. Now, conversely, okay, when you are feeling at the mercy of a succession of speed bumps, when you feel that you are close to rock bottom, or you're definitely headed that way, and you're trying to catch something so you don't keep falling, and you keep falling, and you're like, damn, nothing's going well for me today. This is not my day. I feel so unlucky today. Nothing is working out. Number one, stop talking because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you keep speaking that, because one of the things hopefully you're noticing is that as a divine creator, as an emanation of God, your words have creative force and power. So as you're saying, I'm unlucky, this is a bad day, things are not going well, you are sustaining that state. That is I would call a disflow state, a state where things are not going well for you. So close your mouth, okay? But what you want to do is you do want to be present, and you do want to say to yourself, wow, okay, this is happening. This is happening right now. I see this happening. Pay attention to what were you doing? What was going on? Who were you engaged with? Who were you interacting with? Where were you? What is the picture? What is the tableau that is at play here in which you are experiencing this difficulty, this challenging state, this state in which there's no flow? Take a picture of that. Why? Not so that you can refer to and be like, this is when I had a bad time. It's for you to make a note of what is the context in which I am not at my best? Like, who always shows up when things are not going well for me? Who is it that always seems to be there when things are not well and I'm not at my best? What kind of activities am I engaged in when I notice I'm not at my best? Like, what kind of, because what you're going to find is that there is some sort of pattern that you are falling into that is a very predictable pattern that you've been in for quite some time, that you've fallen into. And as you take snapshots of where you are, what you're doing, the general context of these challenging and difficult situations, you will be able to identify that pattern. You'll identify, okay, when I'm in my worst state, when I'm in a very low vibrational frequency, one of these people is always going to be there. It's going to be one of these people. I am usually going to be engaged in this type of behavior. I will be doing these things. It usually happens, when I have just had a conversation with a particular cousin or a particular friend that I don't see that often. You have to begin to be present in your own life and notice the things that are happening to you so that you can better navigate your way around them. And it's not necessarily about avoiding them, but it's about aligning yourself so that you are engaged in the activities and the thoughts and the type of lifestyle that's aligned with who you really are when you're at your best. That's what life is about. Why waste time allowing yourself to veer off the beaten path, to veer off of alignment, and to waste time spinning your wheels in situations and contexts that are not going to bode well for your well-being, right? So the key here is to have the presence of mind, to be in the now, to be aware and take snapshots, take mental note of what's happening, where you are, who's around, who you're dealing with, and what kind of activities you're engaged in when you're at your lowest and when you're at your highest. And each of those is going to allow you to better navigate your life and to stay aligned with your own vision for your life. Okay? So that was about the importance of taking that snapshot of where you are when you're in the flow and when you're not so much in the flow. And now what I want to chat about, go back to the importance of mining for gold. So mining those trauma sites for gold, for diamonds. And so a lot of us, when we first began to meditate or sit still and began to read about mindfulness, we learned about shadow work and the utility of it, the importance of it, and how when you can engage in shadow work, that means go back to some of the traumas and the difficulties that you've experienced in your formative years, and be there with it, be there with the pain, be there with yourself, love yourself, forgive yourself. These types of things allow you to integrate those shadow sides of yourself into your personality. And so it also entails you're loving yourself, all aspects of yourself. And eventually, after you are able to skillfully maintain a certain level of high frequency in your life, maintain a certain level of equanimity and equilibrium, and a skill to be able to stay on point and aligned, then you can venture back to that trauma, even though you've done some initial shadow work, okay? You can circle back again and now see it at a higher level of frequency. So when you first do the shadow work, normally you're still in a process of healing. As a matter of fact, the reason why you initially engage in shadow work is to heal, is to further heal, so that you're no longer encapsulated and encrusted and entrenched in old patterns of unconscious behaviors that are deleterious to your health, that don't bode well for your future, right? And so as you go and you engage in that shadow work, you are extricating yourself from that slumber, that unconsciousness where you're just going through the motions, and you certainly wake up. But when you venture back to that after you have initially experienced some enlightenment from emerging from those patterns, you can go back again, and now, because you are at a higher level of frequency, now you can be able to mine those traumas for gold, for diamonds, for the high frequency meaning of that experience, and how you can further integrate that trauma into your superpower. That's right. Those things that you have gone through are unique to you. The way that you dealt with them initially, the way that you were able to at some point integrate them, you caused that trauma that you went through to become part of your superpower. It becomes a part of your arsenal of superpowers. Yes. So if you want to further strengthen that superpower, you need to go back to that place and begin to see that trauma and that experience through the eyes of wisdom, and be able to see how that was set up for you to get up. That was a setup for you to catapult into a higher vibration, a higher vision for your life, a higher level of awareness. So now that when you look at that trauma and you are no longer hurt, you're no longer feeling the pain, you're no longer triggered by it, or as triggered as you were initially before you did the shadow work. Now when you go back to that site for a purposeful and intentional mining of that trauma site for value, for currency, for gold that is only yours to use, when you do that, you unlock superpowers. You unlock what the true divine meaning of that difficulty was. And now you get to integrate that, and you now have that as part of the meaning of your life. It becomes part of the fruit on your tree. And there is certain levels that we reach based on things that we unlock. And you, just like when you're playing a video game and you reach a certain level and it says level 3 reached. And when you reach level 3 or you reach level 4 or you reach level 5, these progressive levels, what happens? Well, something is unlocked. There's a new power unlocked. There's a new machine gun. There's a new type of power that's unlocked. And that is the same way your life is, my friend. My beautiful circle, that is the way your life is. When you reach new levels of awareness and enlightenment, you unlock certain superpowers. And one of the best ways and one of the most tried and true ways to do this is to revisit those places of failure, those places of trauma, after you have already done the shadow work, okay? Now you're going back purposefully with the awareness that, okay, I've been on level 5, I'm ready to go to level 6, and I have exhausted all of the opportunities. I have been opportunistic as much as I can, and now I can go back to some of those sites of trauma and dig deeper and be able to see that trauma from a higher vantage point, from the vantage point of my higher self, of my higher being, where I see the higher frequency meaning of this situation, of this experience. And now that new meaning, that higher meaning, how that sets me up for this new level of wisdom causes me to unlock a superpower, unlock another superpower, and then unlock another superpower. So this is not something I recommend for someone who's never even done shadow work, okay? But if you've done the initial shadow work and you're ready to continue to move up levels and unlock features that you have built in that cannot be used until they're unlocked. There are certain levels that you can reach, but you have to go and begin to see your life, difficulties and the high points, as gifts, as opportunities to ascend and move into higher levels of awareness. There's always another level. There is always another level. And the more you're able to see your challenges and difficulties as gifts that need to be unlocked, then you are going to be able to move into an existence, a lifestyle, an awareness where you see yourself as a kind of tree. Okay? And so let's now segue into that. What kind of tree are you? Okay? And that's what I'm going to end with. What kind of tree are you? We are all trees. We all have roots, and we all have branches, and we all have trunks and leaves and a canopy. And very few of us are aware of the degree to which people come to us for counsel, for shade, for guidance. They look at us and they see a type of tree and they come to pick that fruit, and they are hoping that the fruit that they pick is going to be what we're advertising. You know, from a long distance, when you look at a tree, you may think from 25 yards away there's a particular tree, a particular type of tree. But when you get close up to it, you're like, oh, this is just a ficus, right? But whatever tree you are, number one, you need to know who you are. You need to know what you are offering. So that means you have to wake up and become conscious of who you are and what you're doing, and get out of this unconsciousness so that you know what you're putting out and that you cultivate whatever that is. So I see it this way. Just like we have 7 chakras, we have a root chakra, and at that root chakra is our very beginnings. It is survival. We have to be able to have our roots go deep in the ground so that when the water falls, the rain falls, that we're able to go deep down and access the nutrients not only of the soil, but the rain and the water so that we can sustain ourselves and grow. So it's very important to have root chakras that are maintained, that are healthy, and that are not, in a state where they are, they've been damaged and not have been taken care of. That's why shadow work is so important, for you to make sure your roots are healthy, right? So your root chakra is something very important as a tree, okay? And then as you move up, the roots begin to do what they're supposed to do, because the first thing you're growing are the roots. Oftentimes you put a seed in the ground and you think nothing is happening, but a lot is happening underneath the ground. The roots are doing their thing. And the second chakra, the sacral chakra, has to do with that first level of growth where you are coming out of the ground and you are aware of your environment. And so when you as a tree get to the point where you realize that there are others besides yourself that you must interact with, you are in that first level of growth. When you're able to see that there is an environment, there are other things besides myself, and that's where the sacral chakra comes in, with growth and fertility and the opportunity and the ability to be able to become more. And then we move into the solar chakra, which is when we may have like an extra branch that comes out. And so now you have the trunk, and then you have maybe a branch or two branches, and now you are self-aware. You are now aware of who you are. You are now a tree. You don't look like just a little twig or just something sticking out of the ground. You have the trunk and you have two branches, and now you are a tree. You are identified as a tree. The world sees you. The world realizes who you are, and you see them seeing you, right? So this is where the sun now, the solar chakra being reminiscent of the sun. This is where the sun plays more of a role, where now you are growing twigs and branches with leaves on them, and those leaves are allowing you to get even more nutrients, to cultivate yourself even more, as the sun's rays and sunlight now allow you to undergo photosynthesis, and now you are able to internalize that light that's coming from the sun, and you're using light inside you that is helping you to grow and become more. And so as you grow and become more, and you have more branches and more leaves, well, now you have probably even the trunk is growing more, and there are more branches, and now you are moving into the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is where we are realizing that we are connected to other people, to other things, and that it's not just about us, but it is about our interaction with others, and the understanding, at least the beginning understanding, that there is an interdependency, there's an interconnectedness, that you need the bees, and then the birds rely on you. They build their nests in your branches. Sometimes they may pull a twig from you to go build a bird's nest. You are going to be a tree that makes flowers of some sort, so you rely on the bees for pollination. And so you are now understanding that you are in an interconnected ecosystem where it is not just you. Your heart chakra, the level of heart chakra is a level of wisdom and unity with others, in interconnectedness, in interdependency with others. And so as a tree, you are becoming much more aware of your role in this ecosystem. Okay, and so now as you have even a stronger trunk, and you're growing even more up, and there are more branches and more leaves, and your canopy is growing, almost matching the root system that you have down there, which is also growing. Now there is a fifth chakra that has to do with wisdom. It has to do with understanding the power of being able to use what you have so that others can benefit from it and be able potentially to emulate it. And so now you're at the point where others are coming to you for sustenance, for advice, for counsel, or you may have birds who sit in your tree. You may have kids that crawl up and they get on the trunks and they're swinging. But you're realizing that you have a place in the world where you are counted on, where people rely on you to be that tree that you are, that unique tree that only you are. You're a different kind of tree, and people are coming around. They're sitting under the tree that you are, and they are receiving shade and cool, and they are enjoying you, and you are enjoying being enjoyed. And so that's because you are a tree, and there's a particular type of essence and nature that you have uniquely. Okay, and so as you move from the wisdom of the fifth chakra, where you understand what you give to the world and what it gets from you, and how there is an interplay between the two, now you move into the sixth chakra of community, of cosmic harmony, where there is community, and there are different ecosystems that are interdependent. And so now you're branching out into the rest of humanity, where you are known, and what you provide is becoming more and more known. And not only that, the sixth chakra being the third eye, where there is a vision for how we all can work together in a place where no one needs to be alone, no one needs to think that they're alone, and nobody is of the mindset of that low vibrational mindset where we are all detached. In sixth chakra vision, everything is connected. Your roots that have gone down to the ground actually begin to connect to other tree systems, and your branches, that canopy is actually touching other canopies. Imagine the Amazon forest, where the trees, unless we cut them all down, which is ridiculous, that is the lung system of the earth. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but the canopy actually touches others. So the sixth chakra, the third eye, in that particular way of looking at things, everything is really connected and everybody knows it. And so the next level is the crown chakra, and that is where the vision is an aerial view of the whole thing, how we're all one, and how we're all aware of our interconnectedness, and how we are all connected by the root to the same thing, to that same divine creator. We're all trees, and we're all connected, and we all have something unique to give. And so your purpose in life is to begin to understand who you are and what you uniquely bring to the world, and for you to develop a sense of accountability and responsibility to cultivate who you are, so that when someone comes, that there is fruit for them to pick, that you are actually not in inner conflict with yourself, where you are advertising that you are a particular type of tree, but when someone comes to pull the fruit, it's a different kind of fruit from the tree that you're advertising. I mean, a pear tree really should not be generating apples, right? So that means that you need to make sure, for instance, that what you say is congruent with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what activities you're involved in, what you are strategizing. It's called alignment. And so to be a tree that bears fruit, that gives shade and sustenance, and can be grown in other places, you have to cultivate yourself, and you have to continue to grow, and you have to continue to understand what you bring. So what I want to say now, and branch off into something even a little bit more out of the box, is that metaphor of the tree for me is a metaphor for the universe, a metaphor for the divine creator. Because someone, even if when they see you and they emulate you, they're taking a snapshot of you, your tree, and they're able to take that snapshot that's in their mind and recreate it. And so in that way, we're all infinite, in that we are fractally infinite. We are consistently growing. When someone picks the fruit and they eat it and the seed falls down, the seed goes into the ground. Hopefully it falls on good soil. It gets rained on and it takes root and it grows. And there's a mini me. There's another one of me growing. So you have the seeds, then you have the fruit, and you have the root, and you have the leaves, and you have all these aspects of yourself that are fractally generating all over the place. And it is happening all over in people's minds. You exist not only physically here, but you exist in the minds of others. There are people that are emulating your qualities. They're emulating the features that you have. They're emulating whatever you are modeling. And that is how you never die. That is a way that you continue to live and you continue to grow. And all of us, as we're interconnected, we are fractally expanding and making the universe bigger. When you think of us all as one, the sum of us equal God, because we all are an emanation of the divine creator. And so think of yourself as a tree, because for me, that is a way for me to be accountable for who I am, to be accountable and be responsible for what I am contributing. It's important to be reliable. It's important to say what you mean and to have your thoughts and your actions congruent. So that is what I wanted to offer today. We talked about navigating those speed bumps. We talked about the importance of paying attention to who's there, where you are, what you're doing when you're at that high point, high frequency point, at that bliss out point, and when you're at that low point where you're trying to figure out how to get out of that death spiral and to get back in the saddle again. Next, we talked about the importance of going back to those trauma sites, right? Those events in your life that were traumatic, going back to those after you have done some initial shadow work, and go back and do some intentional and purposeful mining where you're looking for gold, you're looking for diamonds. You know that there's something there for you. There's a gift there for you. And as you do that, eventually from repetition, you obtain a skill where you now can see, as difficulties come, you now are like ready to embrace it and go through it, knowing that by the end of that particular trial, you will emerge with a superpower that's unlocked, and you'll go to the next level. And last but not least, we're all trees. What kind of tree are you? And are you reliable? Are you giving someone shade in a good way? Happy Saturday, everybody. It was wonderful once again chatting with you. I hope you got something out of this. I will have this recorded, and I will have it posted on Instagram in the next 15 minutes or so. I also upload these to YouTube, my YouTube channel, which is SOS Consulting, and you can also reach it by searching for Detox Your Circle. I can also have you access this in an audio version on my podcast that's on anchor.fm, and if you search for Detox Your Circle, you'll find this particular video as a podcast, where it's just audio and you can listen to it, or send it to yourself and listen to it later. So that's all I have today, coming to you live from Tempe, Arizona. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Take care.